Hey y'all, it's SNC. Um, and yeah, I'm back. It's been like a week, but this weekend we should be able to get free agency up and running, and and we'll hopefully be able to finish free agency by like Monday or Tuesday. And then I don't know how the next week will go. The season will probably be like it will probably start like next Friday or something, or like the upcoming Friday. Just because of how like difficult it is to start the season up during the week, but maybe since the first half of the season usually only takes like an hour, maybe I could do that on a weekday. We'll see. But yeah, anyways, here I have the post-draft roster update and the team options for every team. As always, the roster update where all the ratings will be ch have been changed around manually by me won't actually affect how good the players are. uh, their ratings, like their overall attribute, or I mean their overall rating, has been adjusted by changing like the intangibles rating and other things like that, which don't affect how they play at all. It's just so contracts are more realistic and people have a more accurate like idea of how good the player actually is, because oftentimes in 2K, the highest rated players aren't playing anywhere near the best players. Like I've seen leagues where the best player is like an 85 over, or like the actual best player is like an 85 overall, even though there's 90s in the league. So this basically just like counters that and shows who the best players actually are. And like the main reason is for contracts, so players actually ask for realistic amounts of money. So without further ado, let's get into it. So now John Williamson is the highest rated player on the Sixers at an 89. Big three is still pretty good. Brad Davis, Doug Collins, and Ernie Grunfield. So, yeah, the Sixers are still a good team as of right now. So, even though they did have a pretty disappointing season, I don't think like their franchise is like done. The Bucks, Larry Keenan, 93. He did have a career year. The only reason he's down from a 94 is because like he wasn't playing like a 94, even though he had a career year. Um, and like a 90 is definitely pushing it though. So. That's why he's down from a 94 to a 93. I don't think like he didn't actually get worse like most players who drop in rating. Uh, he just wasn't like playing at a 94 overall, but yeah, still a 93 for him. Uh, just wanted to explain that if anyone like was wondering why Larry Keenan went down, even though he had a career year. But yeah, Junior Bridgman still at an 88. Eddie Johnson up to an 84, Leon Douglas 84. And yeah, these red arrows and green arrows, that's morale, not player progression. Uh, just so no one's confused about that. Brian Taylor, Charlie Scott. Bucks are as deep as ever. Kresmir Kosic um, has like officially dropped under an 80, but he's still pretty solid as of right now. Eric Money, um, he might seem like a really random player to focus on, but he's been pretty terrible like throughout the entirety of the sim, and finally had like an okay season. Very low volume, very low minutes, but um wasn't like terrible in the minutes he played uh like he was in previous years. But onto the Bulls, Adrian Dantley, 93. Ray Williams staying around like an 86. Randy Smith has dropped to an 85. He's out of the top 10 shooting guards now. The Bulls are a super deep team, a lot of young talent. Randy Smith is taking up a ton of their money though, which is a pretty big issue. But yeah, they are. They're a really young team and a really good team. So expect them to continue to get better and grow. But Randy Smith's regression is a pretty big blow to them. Cavs, Dr. J, first season under a 99. He's now tied for the best player instead of being exclusively the best player like he was in the first 3 seasons. But I mean, that was mainly because he was leading his team to the ring every year. Yeah, so now he's down to a 98, but still tied for best player. Of course, Gus Williams, 92, and Dennis Johnson, 90. Dan Roundfield is down to an 86. He didn't have a bad year. The volume, I guess, just because they didn't win the ring, which when a team wins the ring, all their ratings will be a bit up. So they didn't win the ring, and I mean, it wasn't significantly worse, but they were going to him a bit less. So down to like an 86 from where he usually is. Also, like the rest, it's relative to the ratings are done relative to the league. So that's important to note. So like a lot of the power forwards got better. So Roundfield being on the same level as them, didn't really make sense. So 86 for him. Celtics, Larry Bird up to a 92 after just his rookie year. Sigma 90, Wayne Cooper, Robert Reed, who got a storyline boost. Uh, yeah. So, Celtics are starting to put together more of a complete roster around their top two players. So they'll probably actually be pretty good this year, especially if they can get some guys in free agency. Braves, Alvin Adams, 93. Cedric Maxwell, 87. Yeah, his first year getting like real minutes when they weren't tanking. He was pretty amazing. One of the best defenders in the entire league. Like, yeah, like a great play finisher and just like one of the best connectors in the league too. And he got a storyline boost to his perimeter defense, and it was like a significant upgrade. So Cedric Maxwell was great. Mo Cheeks, 86, after his second year. Braves are another super deep team. Bill Laimbeer also got a storyline boost, and all of their guys are young. So uh, them missing the playoffs this year was super surprising. They won 47 games, I think, or like around that, and they lost in the play-in. I don't expect that to happen again. And the Clippers, who currently don't have a GM because Drexler's apparently got banned. Gilmore staying at a 96, John Lucas 89, Tom Jonovich, Phil Smith, and Wes Unseld following. Yeah, like Clippers, I think are trending downwards probably now. Their money, they don't have as much of a money issue now that they don't have to like pay Lionel Hollins, but Tom Jonovich and Unseld are regressing. Gilmore probably will start to soon. Holland, I think, is regressing too. So yeah, the Clippers are starting to fall apart. The Hawks, Walton 98, Magic Johnson 88. Um, Here's some of their supporting pieces. Another team that will probably be a lot better this year. Magic's rookie year, like wasn't anywhere close to where he'll probably end up being. We see a lot of rookies come out like they're almost in their prime immediately. Like we've seen that a lot in this league. But for Magic, that probably wasn't the case. So, with a much improved Magic and I assume a much improved roster around them, the Hawks are probably gonna be a lot better this year. Michael Ray Richardson, 89, I believe tied for the third best point guard. He was elite. Clement Johnson, 81. For the rest of the squad, rookie Daryl Griffith. Uh, yeah, that was huge for them getting another top pick. And the Heat are low key putting something together. And they'll probably be bad again this year, so maybe another top pick. We'll see. For the Hornets, the champions, Bob McAdoo, 97, Alex English, 93, Oscar Schmidt, 88, playing up to an 89 with morale. Kevin Porter, 82. Joe Bryant, 80. So you can see a lot of their players are super happy. Another super deep team. I didn't expect them to win the ring, especially because they only won 55 games, which is great, don't get me wrong, but there was four 60-win teams in the league, and the 55-win team beat them. And there's like a 75-win team in the league too, so that was just kind of surprising to me. The Jazz, Johnny Davis is the second best shooting guard in the league at a 91. Uh, Crazy breakout year for him, especially because everyone said he was overpaying him, uh, giving him 30 million. Like Karam was overpaying Johnny Davis by giving him 30 million a year, but uh, developed up to an 87 via progs and went up four more through playing great. It's a huge leap. Um, yes, Johnny Davis is the second best shooting guard in the league. The Kings, Jamal Wilkes, 90. John Shoemate backed up to an 84. Alejandro Urgelis Gibot, uh, after not playing for like 2 years, he finally comes back into the rotation and has a phenomenal year. That was really surprising for them. Here's the rest of the roster. Knicks, George Gervin, 94. He's tied for like ninth best player or something like that. He did average 35 points per game, but they missed playoffs. So that's the only reason he's not like a top 10 lock. But he is, of course, a top 10 caliber player. Tiny Archibald, 87. The Knicks are another team falling apart a bit. They looked like they were a contender. Uh, I think like year one, there was like a stretch where they looked like a contender, but the Knicks around George Gervin are starting to fall apart. Lakers, David Thompson, finally tied for best player. He's finally like pushed himself up into that top category. And on my official like top 10 list, I had him number one. Great year for him. He was the MVP, and he beat the 75 win Spurs. Marquez Johnson, 93. Elvin Hayes, only an 85. Yeah, he's regressing pretty hard. Cliff Robinson is up to an 81 though, so um, yeah, Elvin Hayes falling off isn't really going to be much of an issue for them, especially if he can go up even more during player progression. Cliff Robinson is a really big pick up for them in the draft, and Mike Gimisicki, G-Man, another great young big man for them. And if like those two guys can develop up, the Lakers will finally have like, I mean, they do have like some help, but around their duo, but like they probably do need a bit more, and these two guys have the potential to be that. The Magic, Bubbles Hawkins, 90 overall, third best shooting guard in the league. Stano Kropilak, 87. Dave Logan, 86. And Dave Greenwood, who's probably the most surprising rookie, 85 overall. He's tied with like Sidney Moncrief in rating, who we'll get to in a bit. Um, yeah, he was really surprising as a rookie. 13th overall pick, averaging 19, 8, and 3 blocks on 68% true shooting. Drazen Dalapagic, obviously, and Dave Corzine, who they just traded for, are also pretty good. Yeah. Mavericks, Nico Gallis, 88 overall. Sidney Moncrief, 85. Tico Brown, 81. Their rookies were pretty great last year, and they added two pretty great rookies this year too. Two of the top picks in the two of the top prospects in the draft, Joe Barry Carroll and Jeff Ruland. The Mavericks are starting to put together something special. The Nets, Lionel Hollins, 91 overall. He's the second best point guard. Lonnie Shelton, 85. James Donaldson, 80. Uh, got a couple rookies, but they're older rookies. This is an interesting team. They have some pieces, but not a lot. I think they do have their picks for the next 2 years, though, so I guess we'll see what they'll do. They're in an interesting situation as uh, they gave up their 82 pick. I think they either gave up their 82 pick or wait, no, they traded their swaps in 83 and 84, so uh, they have to put something together pretty quickly. We'll see though. The Nuggets, the big three is obviously really good. I think Maurice Lucas has remained at like a 94 the entire sim. And Roby Free and Robert Parrish are around a 90 overall again. And now Phil Chenier and Darnell Hillman, who's been here the entire time. Um, I think I like, yeah, Darnell Hillman had a 74% true shooting this year. Super underrated player. So they have like a bit of help around their big three, but they will probably need more to get to that championship level. Pacers, Moses Malone, 95 overall, eighth best player in the league. Otis Birdsong, 88. Billy Knight, 87. Sam Lacey, 82. And Maserati staying at a 78. The Pacers finally broke into the playoffs last year. See what they can put around their young star duo in Moses Malone and Otis Birdsong. In the Grizzlies, Walter Davis, 88 overall. Pat Cummings, 85 overall. Daryl Dawkins, 83. Reggie King, 82. And of course, the first overall pick, Kevin McHale, starting his career off at an 81. And he's playing up to an 82 via morale because he's really happy to be here. Um, Ton of young talent on this team. My only question, I guess, like Daryl Dawkins comes off the bench. I don't know. Yeah, Daryl Dawkins probably comes off the bench because Pat Cummings is definitely the better of the two. Yeah, for sure. And then you have to start McHale. So Daryl Dawkins is going to come off the bench. But they all they really need is a point guard, and then they're probably like a playoff team. The Pistons, Bob Lanier down to a 91. He's regressing pretty hard. Bantam and Truck 82. Freeman Williams 82. Barker 80. Yeah, this team is definitely falling off. Uh, Huskies, Bernard King 96. Brian Winters 88. Campy Russell 81. Roberto Herrera Tabio 80. Hanson Jones. Um, they traded away Ricky Sobers to clear up some cap. Their top two players are obviously great. It's just like the surrounding pieces aren't really there. And they don't have a ton of assets, so they really are going to need a great free agency here. The Rockets, John Long, 85 overall. Westfall, 84. Calvin Nat, 84. Phil Ford, uh, Rick Roby, like a ton of young talent here. That's actually playing pretty good, but they are going to need like a top pick to because they don't really have like a superstar piece. They have a lot of like really good pieces, just no superstar, even like an all-star. But I mean, they've drafted pretty well, gotten a lot of young talented players. The Spurs, Kareem tied for the best player at a 98. Bobby Jones, 94. His points per game were down a lot, but had probably the best defensive season of the sim so far. 3.4, 3.8 steals and 4 blocks a game. And was still doing, like, still playmaking really well and still being really efficient. So didn't drop him too much. Nixon 88, Dandridge 86, Mike Flynn 82, and of course a ton of depth. Bobby Jones is a free agent, but the Spurs, coming off of a 75 win season, are of course still going to be contending going forward, provided that they can bring back Bobby Jones. Uh, Dave Cowens has fallen firmly out of the top 10, I think. He's tied for like 12th or something with a ton of other players though, so probably isn't even 12th. Yeah, the Suns are just like the Suns are just going to keep giving the Lakers top picks. And right now all the Lakers need is a point guard. And in the upcoming class, there's a man by the name of Isaiah Thomas. So hopefully the Suns can string together a competent roster around Cowens, because Isaiah Thomas on the Lakers would be league breaking for sure. Sonics, who don't currently have a GM, they have a lot of pieces. They don't really have like a top end superstar. John Drew is good, probably like a top 20 to 30 player though. He's not really like a superstar. And the Timberwolves, Kiki Vandeweghe, Rick Mahorn, Jiri Post-Pispil, and the rest of the roster is free agents. Kiki Vandeweghe and Rick Mahorn are going to have absurd seasons, getting all of the touches in the world, especially Kiki. Kiki might actually average 40 as a rookie. Portland, Dan Issel, 88, Mark Olberding. Looks like he just had a down year, and he wasn't like his this year and in San Antonio wasn't actually a fluke, like I thought it was, because he had a huge bounce back year, 22-9, back up to like 3 blocks, and was super efficient. So Oberding is a steal of a contract at 18 million a year and an 88 overall. Larry Knight was phenomenal as a rookie. They got Ricky Sobers pretty cheap. A ton of pieces on this Portland team, even if they don't have that top end superstar anymore. Should be interesting to see what they do with all of it. They do have a couple younger guys, so they could rebuild if they want. Yeah, very interesting roster. And the Warriors have 385 plus overalls at 23 years old or younger. A great young core, just added another top 6 pick at point guard. So I don't know if any of these guys can break out into like a superstar, but they have a ton of young talent. One of the best young cores in the league for sure. The Bullets, Michael Cooper, 87 overall. Jim Paxson, 84. That pick is looking pretty good right now. Edgar Jones, Kyle Macy. Edgar Jones, as a rookie, was actually super underrated. I don't even think I mentioned him, but he averaged almost 4 blocks as a rookie. However, he's probably gonna peak like this year. He's probably gonna enter his prime like now, like this upcoming season. Super old rookie, but was also super good. So a steal at pick 28 for sure. But yeah, that was just something I wanted to mention because that's kind of crazy to get that kind of value at pick 28, even though he's pretty old already. Well, not old, but like old for a young player or a player who only played 1 year. And now, time for the team options. For the Sixers, all these top ones are pretty obvious. John Williamson does opt in to his player option. I assume they'd pick up all of these. Yeah, for the Bucks, Eddie Johnson, that one's pretty obvious. And Billy Ray Bates, who doesn't really play, but I guess he's like an okay young player. So that's an interesting one, I guess. For the Bulls, a lot of obvious ones at the top, for sure. And then T.R. Dunn, who hasn't really played at all, but he is pretty solid. So we'll see what he does there. None for the Cavs. The Celtics, all three of these ones are obvious pickups, in my opinion at least. For the Braves, four pretty obvious ones, or three at least super obvious ones, and then one that's like 79 overall, who's only 25 for 3 million. I think that one seems pretty obvious. Gerald Henderson is probably a decline, but he is still young, so that's not exactly a given one. The Clippers don't currently have a GM, but if they don't get a GM by the deadline, I'll just pick this up for them because he is still a young player, even if he hasn't played at all. So I don't think it makes sense to give up a young player on team control, especially when he hasn't like proven he sucks. He just hasn't gotten the opportunity yet. I don't know what they'll do about him, but I'd probably lean towards accept for the Hawks. But I mean, that's not like a terrible move if he decides to just save his money. The Heat, obviously Michael Ray Richardson makes sense. Eddie Jordan, is pretty terrible. He's young, but he's terrible, so I don't know if he'll accept that. For the Hornets, Oscar Schmidt's obviously an accept. Kevin Porter is older, but he's also still really good, so I think he'd probably lean towards accept. Both of these, the Jazz are obviously going to accept, I think. Jamal Wilkes declines his player option, so Jamal Wilkes is an unrestricted free agent. Marquez Johnson's obviously going to get accepted, I think. And Jack Givens hasn't really played at all for them, per 36, averaging 32 points per game. But yeah, he's played 8 minutes across both of his seasons, the Lakers. So I don't know if they'll accept him, but he is still pretty young. Bubbles Hawkins declines his player option. Uh-oh. Oh. Okay, so Bubbles Hawkins, unrestricted free agent. For the Mavericks, Gallus is probably going to get accepted. By probably, I mean definitely. These bottom two guys, though, Mike Evans isn't great. Paul Dawkins isn't great. I mean, he could still accept them, of course, but I don't think those are like guarantees. Roby Free, $33 million team option. I'd assume he'd accept that. And apparently Calvin Murphy had a $0 player option, which he obviously declines. And Lucas is an unrestricted free agent. This class is looking great right now. Otis Birdsong has an obvious team option. There, the Grizzlies, these two guys are obvious. Mike Glenn, he played a couple. See, like he played his first two seasons and was terrible. So we'll see if he accepts that one or not. Pistons, Freeman Williams, uh, is definitely going to get accepted. He's like the only good he's clearly the best young player on that team. Wilson Washington's probably going to get accepted too. He's pretty solid. Butch Lee, I have no idea. Um, King, obviously going to get accepted. For the Rockets, they have some interesting ones. These top three obviously will get accepted, but they do have some older guys for pretty big contracts. Palabinkus probably does actually have. I mean, actually, with how stingy people are about picks, I don't. I mean, he isn't actually worth a first round pick anyway. So Palabinkus is interesting. He's a good player, but the threshold for being like for having any value in this league is really high. So I don't know if they'll be able to get anything out of him. Earl Brown definitely not worth that. Gail Goodrich definitely not worth that. For the Spurs, Nixon is a team option he'll obviously accept. Dandridge accepts his $42 million player option. Thompson, obvious team option accept. And these ones are interesting because they are pretty big contracts for barely rotation players on his team at least. They're good players, but for his team they're barely rotation. So I don't know if he'll accept Herrera, Brabenec, or Mix. Kupek also has a team option. The Suns, Ricky Green. I think that's obviously one you accept. He's like arguably his second best player, and he's young, and he's like, yeah. So they definitely are going to accept that one. Sonics don't have a GM. If they don't get one, I'll accept these. Terry Taylor hasn't been great, but he's a young player making not a lot of money, and I think he's salvageable for sure. So that one obviously makes sense. Well, not obviously, but I think that one makes sense to accept. And Tree Rollins is an obvious one. So if they don't get a GM before the deadline, I will accept both of these for the Sonics. Portland, just some like whatever young players. So I don't know if you'll accept those or not. We'll have to see. For the Warriors, the top two are obvious. Kenny Carr, that's probably good value for his contract. Ollie Mack, I don't know, and yeah, because he hasn't played, but he is still young, so maybe he'll accept that one. And for the Bullets, the last team, Michael Cooper, um, 6 million for Michael Cooper is pretty obvious one. Alvin Scott, uh, I mean, that's probably like good value for him, but he hasn't been great, so I don't think that's a guarantee actually. Greg Bunch, that's like he's probably worth that actually. That's probably one you accept. His overall is low, but honestly, I probably should have increased his intangibles rating because he has been outplaying 72 overall. We'll see though. He's not like super important, and Cedric Horges is terrible. So yeah, yeah, that's it for the options. The deadline will probably be like 3 or 3:30 p.m. EST. So get your options in by then. And yeah, that is it for this video. Unfortunately, the like my I can't be on as much as I was able to in the summer, so that's why like the league has slowed down a lot. But I will still keep pushing it forward, even though it will be at a slower pace. So don't worry, the league isn't ending. It's just going to be slower from now on out. Yeah, thank you